This is part one of the story about the car that was meant to change everything, but ended up becoming something completely different. Before it became an icon, it was a political tool, a promise, and one of the most ambitious social projects in automotive history. Let's go back to where it all began. Adolf Hitler admired Henry Ford. He wanted to replicate Ford's achievement, to create a people's car, but this time for the German nation. At the same time, it's important to understand that a politician who made promises people could actually believe in, like soon you'll have your own personal car, was gaining enormous political capital. In the 1920s and 30s, owning a car was an impossible dream for most people. It was a very smart move in terms of establishing control over the population. The development of the car was assigned to Ferdinand Porsche. The task was clear: create a car that could comfortably travel at 90 to 100 kilometers per hour on the Autobahn, fit 5 people, 2 adults and 3 children, a typical German family at the time, and cost 990 Reichsmarks. That was roughly $400 back then. The key difference between the Volkswagen Beetle and the Ford Model T was this: the Model T was a business product, while the Beetle was a social project. Because of that, the technical side, engine, handling, engineering perfection, wasn't the main priority. It was primarily a political and social idea, not just a car. In fact, initially, there were no real plans to mass produce it, but more on that later. The main problem Porsche faced was time. Designing a cheap car is actually harder than designing an expensive one. It had to be simple, reliable, easy to repair, use minimal parts, and still be worthy of being called the dream of the German people, all for $400. And even though no one demanded engineering brilliance from Porsche, he never created mediocre machines. The result was a truly genius car. It was produced from 1938 all the way to 2003, with over 21.5 million units built. It had a rear-mounted air-cooled flat engine, a true Porsche concept. For its class, it had surprisingly good handling and was one of the first mass-produced cars where aerodynamics was seriously considered. It was incredibly durable, almost impossible to break, which is why it remained popular for decades, even being produced in Brazil as late as 2003. This car essentially marked the beginning of the era of German automotive dominance in technology, reliability, and design. However, Porsche didn't come up with the Beetle entirely on his own. In 1931, he presented the Porsche Type 12 prototype. By 1932, early pre-production models already existed. But even before that, in Czechoslovakia, Hans Ledwinka developed the Tatra WWII 570, a prototype that later evolved into the Tatra 97. Ledwinka, an Austrian engineer working for Tatra, was a pioneer of aerodynamic car design. And yes, Porsche borrowed heavily from Tatra. He visited their factories frequently, studied their designs, and incorporated many of their ideas. In fact, the Tatra WWII 570 was arguably the first aerodynamic car, not the Beetle, as many believe. In 1937, as the Beetle was nearing production, Tatra filed a lawsuit against Porsche and Volkswagen, claiming patent infringement. Porsche didn't strongly deny it, but then Hitler intervened. Soon after, Czechoslovakia was occupied, and the lawsuit was dropped. Years later, in 1967, long after Porsche's death, Volkswagen had to pay compensation of 3 million marks for the stolen patents. But after the war, compensation wasn't only owed to Czechoslovakia, it was also owed to ordinary German citizens. Originally, the car was called KdF-Wagen. KdF stood for Strength Through Joy, a state organization responsible for leisure, lifestyle, and propaganda. They organized events, built resorts, cruise ships, and promoted the ideal German lifestyle. The KdF-Wagen was just one part of that vision. Advertisements showed happy families driving on the Autobahn to KdF resorts and vacations. To make this dream accessible, a payment system was introduced. People received savings booklets and had to contribute 5 Reichsmarks per week. If they missed even one payment, All previous contributions were lost. Once they reached 990 Reichsmarks, they were supposed to receive their car. For many families, this seemed like a perfect deal. And for the state, it was a steady flow of money. Around 350,000 families joined the program early on. A factory was built, and by 1938 it was officially opened. People continued paying, expecting their cars. But here's the truth. No one ever received one. Not a single customer got their KdF-Wagen. Only a few prototype cars existed, mainly used for propaganda at parades. The money and the factory were used for something else: war. The Volkswagen plant became a key part of Nazi Germany's military industry. The Beetle platform was adapted into military vehicles like the Type 82. So before becoming the most mass-produced car in history, the Beetle first became one of the most widely used military vehicles of Nazi Germany.